Okay, so Nicole Kidman has asked the court to end her 19-year marriage. After what seemed like nearly 2 decades of love, happiness, and looking great together at fancy parties, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, who everyone thought were the perfect celebrity couple, are calling it quits. The news came as a surprise. There weren't any scandals or big public fights, just a quiet request for a split that ended what seemed like one of Hollywood's most charming illusions. For almost 20 years, they looked like they had it all together. The movie star and the country singer seemed to handle everything with ease. Fans thought they had found the key to a lasting relationship, even with all the attention. But behind the smiles, there was a problem slowly growing, quietly and away from the cameras. Now, Nicole is finally speaking up. What she said has shocked fans and shown a side of Keith that no one expected. Because this isn't just a breakup, it's her way of admitting what she put up with and what the public never saw. It happened quietly, almost too quietly for such a famous couple. On a rainy Tuesday morning in Nashville, legal papers showed up online. Nicole Kidman officially asked to split from Keith Urban. There was no warning, no press conference, just a single sentence in a document, and a 19-year love story was over just like that. Fans were shocked. This wasn't how celebrity relationships usually end. There was no cheating scandal, no screaming paparazzi, no obvious drama, just silence. Within hours, gossip magazines went wild. Was there trouble again? Were they splitting up? Or had the fairy tale just run its course? What made it even stranger were their reactions. Keith was on stage that same night, alone, his voice shaking as he sang "Blue Ain't Your Color." People in the audience noticed something. He couldn't finish the last verse. He just looked down and left the stage. At the same time, Nicole was in Sydney, walking with her daughters, holding their hands. No statement, no tears, just calmness, the kind of calmness that hides tiredness. People close to Nicole and Tom said Nicole was the glue holding everything together for ages. But lately, even she was getting tired because sometimes romance just fizzles out. It fades slowly, painfully, and out of the blue. That's what made the breakup so strange. It wasn't about cheating. It was about things just being too quiet. While fans were sad to see their story end, not many knew this wasn't the first time. Nicole's life had fallen apart and been rebuilt before. What happened before Keith explains everything that came after. Way before all the fancy red carpets and big awards, Nicole Kidman was just a shy young woman, pale with wavy auburn hair, and a voice barely above a whisper. Born in Honolulu, raised in Australia, she didn't have that confident movie star vibe we know now. She was shy, unsure, a kid who'd rather hide behind clothes than stand in front of cameras. Her dad was a psychologist, her mom a nurse. Their house was full of caring, but also expectations. Nicole felt things deeply, maybe too much. When she got hurt, she didn't fight back, she just disappeared. That's how she found acting. She didn't want fame. She wanted to escape. On stage, she could finally talk without shaking. She could become someone else, someone brave, confident, unstoppable. By 17, she was on TV. At 21, she was in Days of Thunder and met the guy who would change her life forever, Tom Cruise. He was already a huge star. She was the quiet newcomer who looked at him like he was something from a dream. And for a while, he was. But as the cameras loved them more and more, Nicole started to disappear again, just like she did as a kid. Only this time, the whole world was watching. What looked like a love story was slowly turning into a lesson she'd never forget. And when that love finally broke, it left scars that even Keith Urban couldn't completely heal. Before that sadness, there was healing, or at least it looked that way. When Nicole met Keith, it wasn't just dating, it felt like a rescue. When Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise met while filming Days of Thunder in 1989, it felt meant to be. He was the brightest star in Hollywood. She was a rising star just getting noticed. They clicked instantly, even when they weren't filming. Fast forward, and before anyone knew it, she was 23, married, and living inside a Hollywood bubble. At first, it was exciting. Private jets, fancy clothes, big houses. But hidden behind those perfect pictures, something darker was brewing. Being with Tom Cruise meant no privacy. Every move was watched. Every friend was judged. Every word was filtered. Nicole later admitted she felt small. Her world shrank to fit his. Her dreams, career, and identity changed to match his path. But she stayed because she loved him. And it wasn't about power. It was about love. They had 2 kids, Isabella and Connor. For a while, she thought being a mom would fix things. It didn't. It only made her feel more alone. Then came Scientology, the hidden third person in their marriage. The deeper Tom went, the further Nicole drifted. When she finally found the courage to leave, she lost more than just her husband. She lost her kids, too. The church slowly, painfully, and completely broke their bond. She spoke about it years later, her voice calm but her eyes filled with sadness. "They're adults now," she said softly, "and they've made their choices." The phrase "they have chosen their paths" hurt more than any crazy news story could. It wasn't just a breakup. It was a wound that never healed, one that followed her into every relationship after. So when Nicole met Keith Urban, the wild musician from Queensland, she didn't see danger. She saw someone who needed saving. Maybe saving him was her way of saving herself. By 2005, Nicole Kidman was healing, or at least pretending to. She threw herself into work, raising her kids and keeping quiet. After Tom Cruise, she stopped looking for romance. She wanted peace. That's when Keith Urban came along. He was a country boy from Queensland, raised on music and chaos. The opposite of everything she knew. No fancy Hollywood talk, no controlling group, just a guy with a guitar, a wild heart, and eyes that held the same sadness she'd been hiding for so long. They met at a fancy party in Los Angeles. Nicole said she felt a spark right away. But what really got her was not the fame. It was the pain. She saw it in him, the addiction, the loneliness, the way he smiled to hide it all. Keith had been fighting his own battles for a long time, like alcohol, drugs, and the kind of self-doubt that fame only makes worse. He wasn't perfect, and he never said he was. But when he looked at Nicole, he saw something pure, something he didn't want to mess up. Their relationship grew fast, almost scary fast. Within a year, they were inseparable, two hurt people who hoped love could fix what life had broken. Nicole once said, "He gave me the courage to trust again," and for a while it did. Their wedding in 2006 in Sydney was like a dream, lit by candles and surrounded by family and close friends. It felt like a fresh start. For Nicole, it meant she could find love again without losing herself. For Keith, she was his rock. But beneath that perfect day, something else was brewing. The same pattern Nicole had experienced before. She'd be the calm one, and he'd be the storm. Because when you love someone battling their demons, you don't just marry them. You marry their struggles. And soon that struggle would test everything they thought love could fix. For a while, they seemed like they had it all. Nicole Kidman, the queen of movies, and Keith Urban, the king of country music. They looked great together at events, always smiling and making people believe in love again. Keith wrote songs for her, and Nicole gave him awards. It seemed so easy, or at least looked that way, but behind the cameras, the fairy tale was already cracking. Only 4 months after they got married, Keith went to rehab. He'd relapsed. The news was hard. Keith Urban in treatment after only 4 months of marriage to Nicole Kidman. For most couples, that might have been the end. But for Nicole, it was a test. She stood by him completely. No public shaming, no emotional distance, just quiet loyalty. The same kind that had failed her before. She visited him privately, sent him messages, and told the world she loved him no matter what. And when he came home, he called her his miracle. For a bit, people thought it was a happy ending, that their love had overcome everything. But what the cameras didn't show was how much it cost her to keep it all together. As one person got better, the other started to sink. Keith's world was all about getting back on his feet. Nicole's world revolved around him, and slowly, her fun started to look more like work. Still, she kept showing up to everything. Fancy parties, talks, openings. She smiled like nothing was wrong, but fans began to notice little things. Keith was showing up alone more often. Nicole was at events without him. Different schedules, different places, different lives. The dream couple was starting to fall apart. They were still sweet with each other. That was never the problem. The problem was that their love had become a job. Every photo, every time they were seen together, every quote was another act to convince the world, and maybe themselves, that everything was fine. But deep down, they both knew the truth. Love built on someone's recovery is fragile. Once the wounds heal, you have to face what's left underneath. And what was left between them was distance. From the outside, life looked perfect again. Keith had healed. Nicole was winning awards. They had 2 beautiful daughters, Sunday and Faith. The picture was complete. But hidden by that picture was a different reality. Keith was always traveling. Nicole was always filming. Different schedules, different lives. She'd call between scenes. He'd answer from backstage, half listening, surrounded by noise. They both said the same things, "I miss you." But the between them was fading. Nicole once said in an interview, "We never go more than 5 days apart." Fans thought it was romantic. Really, it was a rule. A desperate one, because when you start counting days instead of moments, you already know something is slipping away. At home, she became the rock, raising their kids, setting routines, and keeping things stable. Keith became the whirlwind, the artist chasing songs, praise, and peace. They loved each other, but they lived in different worlds. Small things started to hurt. Forgotten anniversaries, missed chats. He'd walk into a room and she'd smile, but her eyes didn't light up like they used to. To the public, they looked perfect. Arm in arm on fancy carpets, whispering to each other at award shows, but cameras only caught the smile, not the silence before it. Friends said Nicole had become too strong, that she rarely broke down. But being strong can be a mask, a way to hide how tired you are of being the one holding everything together. Keith started putting his feelings back into his songs. His songs got darker, more honest, with words about breaking up, guilt, and needing forgiveness. People thought they were just love songs, but Nicole knew better, because sometimes a song is just a sorry you can't say out loud. And with every line he sang, their love felt more like an echo. Pretty, strange, but fading. By 2015, the cracks were obvious. Even if they pretended not to see them, the smiles were still there. The talks were still polite, but fans could feel it. That weird space between them, the kind you can't hide behind expensive clothes or fake warmth. Gossip mags started asking questions. Are Keith and Nicole living separate lives? Is their marriage just for show? At first, they laughed it off. Keith would post something sweet on social media. Nicole would smile in an interview. Every denial sounded nice, but also rehearsed. After years of trying to prove you're okay, you forget what real okay even looks like. Keith got seriously into his music. The stage was his happy place. He was always on tour, while Nicole took on roles that felt safer than her own life. Shows like Big Little Lies and The Undoing, about women trapped in perfect lives, felt a bit too close to reality. Fans watched on. One minute Keith was in Vegas pouring his heart into a song. Next, Nicole was walking red carpets alone. Her signature smile looked a little forced. They kept up appearances, though. Every anniversary, a sweet post. Every public event, a pose for the cameras. But it wasn't fooling anyone. The love was there, but it had changed, like it didn't know how to express itself anymore. By 2022, they were so good at faking it that even their friends didn't know what was real. Behind closed doors, things had changed. Keith's old problems started to creep back in, just enough to ruin the peace they'd built. And Nicole, always the protector, began to pull away, not out of anger. She was just tired. There comes a point where even love feels like a chore, and silence speaks louder than any fight. By 2024, it happened. Nicole stopped pretending. People didn't see a fight. They saw a split. Keith showed up alone. Nicole walked red carpets without her ring. The fairy tale wasn't blowing up. It was falling apart gently, like two people realizing that sometimes love isn't enough to carry the weight of who they've become. When the papers were finally filed, there was no villain, no cheating, just two people standing in the ruins of something they thought would last forever. After ages of whispers and fuzzy paparazzi shots, the truth finally came out. Not from Nicole, but from Keith himself. On a talk show in late 2024, Keith sounded shaky as he talked about losing sight of what really mattered. He admitted fame, touring, and personal problems had pushed away the person who believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. Fans were shocked. It wasn't just an apology. It was asking for forgiveness. He described nights alone in hotel rooms, guitar in hand, trying to write love songs that didn't feel real anymore. And when the host asked if he thought he could get Nicole back, his silence spoke volumes. Nicole didn't respond with anger or even a nod. No fights, no shared tears. Instead, she walked the same red carpet weeks later. She looked great and composed, wearing that quiet strength she's known for. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was strength that comes from surviving kinds of pain the world can only guess at. Sources said she'd turned inward, focusing on her kids, her art, and healing from years of compromise. Keith looked for redemption in his music. Nicole found peace in being alone. Two people who once fixed each other are now healing on their own. Even now, when you see them, you can still sense it. That lingering fondness, that ache of unfinished love. Because even after everything, the fame, the pain, the breakup, some ties just never really break. What happened with Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban isn't just about lost love. It's about what it takes to have a perfect life in the spotlight. For almost 20 years, they gave the world an illusion. Red carpet smiles, perfect chemistry, a charmed marriage that seemed untouched by Hollywood storms. But behind every great photo was a fragile reality. Even the strongest relationships can break under the quiet pressure of distance, fame, and expectations. Nicole said in an interview years ago, "I believe in love that lasts, but not all love is meant to last forever." Maybe that's what this was. Not a failure, but a change. Two souls who met when they were broken, built something beautiful, and then outgrew it when they healed. Keith found his way through confession, through songs filled with regret and longing. Nicole found hers through quiet, through art, being a mom, and taking back her story. Maybe that's the lesson hidden beneath it all. Even the brightest stars fade in the same night sky. Even the most beautiful love stories end, not with betrayal, but with understanding. Because in Hollywood, love isn't always forever, but for a moment, it was real, and that's what makes it unforgettable.